Party, Nigel Farage.
Well, that was unbelievable. We will use this 200 billion.
Two buttons, don't worry. There's one on top, there's one at the front. That is the shutter.
We have a vital role now. This is a truly seismic moment in history. The big question, of course, is can we trust Boris? We must not let him sell this country down the river by reheating, rehashing, and repackaging the worst deal in history, that dreadful withdrawal treaty.
Please welcome to the stage, Richard Tice.
Hello, Maidstone! Welcome. What an extraordinary week. What a great time to have a party, a rally. Our 9th in September, our 9th regional conference across the whole country. Unlike the main parties, they organise their rallies sort of in some smart city somewhere and it costs hundreds and hundreds of pounds. We've had rallies all over the country. We've spoken to thousands of people. Hundreds of thousands of people have watched them on live stream. It's hard to believe, ladies and gentlemen, we're only 24 weeks old. Now, I hope you'll agree that actually in those 24 weeks we truly have started to change politics for good. And what a week we've seen. Just 3 weeks ago, the beginning of September, we launched over 500 candidates at a launch event in Westminster, prospective parliamentary candidates that we'd interviewed, vetted and approved and nominated for seats. And we said a simple slogan, you can see it here, we're ready. And we said we've got to be ready for anything. And my word, hasn't this week shown that you really do have to be ready for anything? I think it's fair to say, dear Boris, you know, I never thought I'd say this, but I almost feel sorry for him. You know, we might all wonder whether we trust him, but goodness me. I mean, the poor man, he's got most of the House of Commons on the other side on the green benches. They ask him to resign, but they haven't got the guts to sack him, which they could. They've made him, this is quite a record, they've made him lose 7 votes out of 7. Hard for Boris, because normally he considers himself a winner. He's lost 7 votes out of 7. And yet, that gutless zombie parliament will not allow the people to vote on them. It's disgraceful. And my word, didn't Geoffrey Cox do well in the Commons yesterday? I have to say, you know, he may have had a bit of practice. He may have had a bit of practice, but he really did hit the nail on the head. It is a gutless, zombie, dead parliament, and the sooner it is gone, the better. And whilst those existing opposition MPs, they lack the courage to have an election, to let the people have their say, because they know they're frightened, they're petrified. They don't have the courage, the bravery that our prospective parliamentary candidates do. And we've got, I think, almost 50 of them here today. I think in the front couple of rows. Please stand up, be on your feet. I tell you what, Nigel and I really do take our hat off to them, because it takes courage, it takes bravery. There's a fair bit of grief and angst and vitriol online. One of the reasons we're so delighted to have you on board is we can just share the rubbish and the grief that comes with this. But no, seriously, to have that courage. Almost all of these candidates have never stood for public office before. And there's a reason for that. Because they've been out running real lives, succeeding, achieving, doing things, making things, looking after people. Real people with real lives who've now got something to give back to public service. And that is what we want in Parliament. We've had enough of these pretty perfect policy wonks in Westminster. We want them out. And I said, when we launched 24 weeks ago in a wonderful family-run business in Coventry, we launched our first 6 MEP candidates, one of whom was Jacob's sister. He was very gracious about it, actually. And who knew then what we would achieve? 6 weeks later, we had won a national election, never been done anywhere in the world, to win a national election 6 weeks after launching. And I said then that we had the highest quality candidates that I think had ever stood for public office in this country. And I know, having been through this list of over 500 candidates that we have for the forthcoming general election, the same is true. This is the highest quality group of candidates that I think has ever stood for public office in our lifetimes. And the great thing about that European election was after 6 weeks, we ended up being the largest political party in the whole of the European Parliament. I quite enjoy that. It's great fun because we love it, they hate it. I mean, it really does bug them. Because we've been making constructive contributions, as you may have seen in the chamber. We've been a little bit lively, but that's what it's all about. And in winning that election, we got 50% more votes than any other party. We got more votes than the Tories and the Labour Party put together. And that shows and the election was on the 23rd of May, and thanks to us, on the 24th of May, Theresa May announced she was leaving. So we've helped get rid of the worst Prime Minister this country's ever had the misfortune to experience, and with her gone, we got rid of the worst cabinet this country has ever had the misfortune to be led by. And then at the end of June, we had our big vision rally, the biggest political rally that this country's seen for over 25 years, some 5,000 people in Birmingham. We announced some of our first key policies. They say that imitation is a form of flattery, and almost every single policy the Tories have subsequently tried to nick. We said that we would scrap HS2 because it was going to cost 100 billion quid of our money. A ridiculous project. And sure enough, within a few weeks after Boris was elected, he announced a review of HS2 with a view to scrapping it. We said, we're not going to send 39 billion quid of our cash to Brussels. And sure enough, Now Boris talks about potentially leaving without a deal, what we call a clean break Brexit. The Tories are now talking about not sending all that money to Brussels. That's our money. We said we would redirect 50% of the bloated, wasteful foreign aid budget back in to our public services here in the UK. You see, you add those three things up and suddenly you arrive at £200 billion. I mean, that's proper money, ladies and gentlemen. It's so much money, it's hard really to visualize it. But it's a huge sum of money, 100 billion of which our government currently wants to send overseas, which means it's gone forever. Whereas what we want to do is we want to invest it in the regions, because the regions have been left behind. London has done incredibly well. It's had all the infrastructure investment, over 4 times what the regions have had. And the regions all over the country have been left behind. And we know that by investing in the regions, we can make a huge difference. Local road and rail schemes that make a real difference to real people's lives locally as they get to work and things. And that, we believe, is the right thing to do. We said that we wanted to get an online sales tax so that we could help the high street and small businesses. And surprise, surprise, the Tories have copied that too. We said we wanted to invest much more in broadband and free Wi-Fi on public transport all over the country, not just on the London Tube. And sure enough, the Tories have copied that too. You may have seen some of our videos since we launched. Amazingly, our videos and social media has been watched over 40 million times by people since we launched. And the Tories, and bereft of ideas, the Tories have even started to copy our videos. That's fine, that's fine. We'll keep ahead of the game. And so shortly after that rally, Boris won the leadership contest. And the truth is, ladies and gentlemen, without us, he would not have been Prime Minister. Without the Brexit Party, in fact, it's unbelievable, isn't it? Without the Brexit Party, heaven forbid, Theresa May would not only still be Prime Minister, but would be in the middle of a second referendum campaign. That's the difference that we've started to make. And that's the difference that we intend to continue to make with all our prospective candidates ready to stand across the whole country. And we've got a video of just some of the lives and the experiences of some of our candidates. So hopefully you can see that on the screen now.
In just a few months, the Brexit Party has some amazing achievements. We've reset the political agenda, got rid of a hopeless Prime Minister, and made the option of a clean break Brexit the most popular one in the country. But now we face our biggest challenge, to fight a general election across the entire United Kingdom. And we are ready.
54% of people of Leicester East feel like they don't have a voice. So I'm here to give them that voice. There's a lot of people that I've spoken to that said they're never going to vote again, because how can you trust the political system now? People just want common sense, people like them representing them. And that's where the Brexit Party is firmly positioning itself. It's just a party of regular people like myself who want to get involved because we care, and then make sure that this sort of betrayal can never happen again.
People voted for something completely new, voted to go out into the unknown and try something completely different and reclaim power back. We all have a stake in it, and I'm one of those people.
Even though I'm an ordinary person on Exmoor, running the Exmoor Pony Project, living an ordinary life, I just felt that I had to be part of it. We've stepped up because we simply have to defend and safeguard our democracy, and we're here.
From what I've seen, a lot of the Brexit PPCs now are just from normal backgrounds, just working class people who care about people as well.
I think there's a lot of commonality between a politician and a doctor. Consultation always begins with listening. You listen to what the person has to say, take on board, and then help them and make them realise that actually they've got control. They've got the power to decide their future and what to do and what not to do, and they're not helpless.
I'm just a normal, hard-working, working-class person. But I think the taxi driving has given me an insight of how people live, and you get to learn their issues because you become their agony aunt. To tell the taxi driver everything.
I am ready.
I'm ready.
I am ready.
I'm definitely ready.
I'm ready.
We have an extraordinary cross-section of people from every walk of life making a stand for democracy. They will be our candidates at the forthcoming general election, and we are ready.
So we're ready, ladies and gentlemen. Our candidates are ready. Are you ready to help us, ladies and gentlemen? Are you ready? Are you ready? That's fantastic, because we're going to need your help. Dawn there talked about trust in democracy, and we talked about it in the European election. It's unbelievable to think. The truth is, regrettably, we're not leaving on October the 31st. It's quite clear from what these clowns and buffoons in Parliament are doing to us that we're not going to leave. And that's why it comes back to trust in democracy. And it's probably at its lowest ever point. And we've got some great speakers who will talk about that. Our first one is someone who is a wonderful, wonderful character, a great, passionate Brexiteer, but also a lady who knows Maidstone as well as anybody. It's no coincidence this rally, she was so excited because, as you know, she was MP for Maidstone and the Weald for many years. That was the first phase of her incredible career. She then realised that actually her second calling was what I call phase 2 of her career. Her second calling was to teach many of us how to dance. But then her third, and I believe most important calling now, is to protect democracy in this country. You know, and we were so lucky when she phoned us up and said, I need to come and join the Brexit Party. I think that was probably one of the most incredible phone calls that Nigel ever received. Before we welcome her to the stage, let's just see Anne in action on the video.
We've got the worst leader of the opposition in the entire history of the Labour Party, and we've got the worst parliament since Oliver Cromwell, and with that combination we are actually engaged in the most important international negotiations for 50 years. No, let me finish this sentence, Adam, then over to you. There's a growing disengagement between the people and Parliament. And what I want is an overwhelming Brexit victory on May the 23rd. That's what I want.
Please welcome to the stage, Anne Widdecombe.
Hello, Maidstone. Do you remember me? It's not that long ago, it's only 9 years. And the reason that I'm now appearing before you in a somewhat different capacity is that this country is in the biggest mess that I can remember in my political lifetime. You've got the people disengaged from Parliament, Parliament overruling the government estranged from the Speaker. It is the worst Parliament since the Civil War. yet the issue is so simple. 17.4 million people voted to leave the EU. Those people won the referendum. And therefore it's very simple. We have to leave the EU. Why is it that they don't understand that in Westminster? Possibly. Why is it that they don't understand why the majority of the British people want to be able to make our own laws, to control our own borders, to do our own trade deals, and to be governed by our own democratically elected government? Isn't that pretty simple too? What is so difficult to understand about a country wanting its independence? And that's what this is about. It is about the independence of the realm. And that is what we are being denied by Her Majesty's Parliament. And my message to them is simple. Either Britain leaves the EU, or they can all leave Parliament and we'll take their place. And when I say that Britain must leave, I mean leave. The withdrawal agreement negotiated by Theresa May is not Brexit in anything except name. It will keep us tied to the EU, subject to their decisions, but without any say in the matter at all. It isn't just the backstop that we need to worry about. There are whole sections of that deal which are nothing more than an abject surrender from a country on its knees. Oh, say the poor little dears in Parliament, we mustn't use words like surrender. It encourages violence. It upsets them. We mustn't use that sort of word. Well, I call a spade, and I call a surrender, and I know a surrender when I see it. And our message to Boris is very clear. It is that if he really can get us out on the 31st of October with a clean break, following which we can negotiate a trade deal with the EU from a position of total independence, if he can actually achieve that, then the Brexit Party will help to make sure that he stays in government in any forthcoming election. But if he doesn't do that, then he can go into that election and he can lead it as if he were leading the charge of the Light Brigade. Because if he does that, he will find that he's got Brexit to right of him, Brexit to left of him, Brexit in front of him, volleying and thundering. Democracy means just that. It means that the people decide and Parliament delivers. And the people did decide, and they decided very clearly, and for 3 long years we have had a Parliament which has been absolutely determined not to deliver the clearly expressed will of the British people. They are a disgrace. They are not a democratic Parliament. They are purely serving their own ends and following what they think is right for the rest of us. Now, in some ways, I'm sad to be here tonight, because I know that there are people in this audience who for many years, I was the MP for 23 years, for many years pounded the pavements for me, delivered literature for me, canvassed voters for me. And I'm aware that in 2001, when I was helicoptering around the country with William Hague, the only way I had any presence or activity in Maidstone was from those loyal workers. And I know that what has happened now is the parting of friends. We have not suddenly become enemies or even adversaries, because I have had to take a different course and join a different party. Because the thing that still unites us, still would keep us out pounding those streets, and which will keep us out delivering the leaflets, doing our level best, the thing that unites us is a single word. It is democracy. And for democracy and for our independence, I am prepared to change party. I am prepared to upset friends. I am prepared to depart from a course on which I was convinced that my life was set. Because democracy is more important than any single individual. Democracy is what means. It means that every single individual counts and is every bit as important as those who sit in Parliament telling us what our future should be. We know what our future should be. Out of the EU. Free. Independent. And there is only one party that currently offers that to the British people, and that is the Brexit Party. The Conservatives offer us division and chaos. Labour offers us division and chaos. The Liberal Democrats offer us a reversal of a democratic decision, and only the Brexit Party says we will deliver a Brexit that is a Brexit, and we will make sure that the will of the British people is respected and is implemented, and we will make sure that that is done with all possible speed if we have to go to Westminster and turf this lot out. That's why I've joined the Brexit Party. Richard has mentioned that I phoned up Nigel Farage. Don't worry about that. I was actually standing by a Norwegian fjord when I crossed a Rubicon and I rang up Nigel Farage. And I said to him, I want to join your party because your party is the last hope of those of us who want a free British future. And all this noise here is just the same as all the noise that's going on in Parliament. It shuts up when you finally tell it to. Defy the noise for long enough and it will subside into sense. And that is what we are going to make sure happens. And let their shenanigans continue if they wish, but it will only end one way. And it will end with the British people saying, we voted to leave, we are going to leave, and therefore, by definition, we are going to vote for the party that promises to leave and which actually means it. Are you ready? Really ready? Well, tell them so that they can hear it in Westminster once more. Are you ready?
Wow. Well done, Anne. Brilliant. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, Anne Widdecombe. Woo! Isn't she great? Incredible energy. I think it's fair to say that is a real life experience of knowing that absolutely nothing, noise, fire alarms, who knows, nothing will stop Anne when she is in full flow. And nothing at all. And it's fair to say that when she arrived for the first time in the European Parliament, they really did have no idea what was about to descend on them. In fact, the truth is, she's one of the few reasons they actually want us to leave. So that she doesn't grace the European Chamber any longer and annoy them. She's absolutely fantastic. Her energy, her passion, her commitment, and her work rate, ladies and gentlemen. The reason that she's just left us just now is because she is rushing up to central London to be on BBC Newsnight tonight. That is energy and commitment that we are very grateful for. Such is her passion and her commitment to Brexit and democracy. She's a wonderful member of the European Parliament. She's going to stand as a prospective parliamentary candidate. She is an inspiration to us all. And that brings me on to the next speaker, who's also an elected member of the European Parliament for the Brexit Party here in the South East. He's an incredibly successful businessman, a philanthropist, and is very involved in running a wonderful charity called Ticket for Troops that has delivered over 2 million tickets for our troops, both current and former troops, which is a fantastic tribute. He's also standing as a candidate in the forthcoming election. Please give a huge welcome, Robert Rowland, MEP.
At a time when we need to rebuild our Navy, isn't it great to have our own pocket battleship, HMS Withers? Ladies and gentlemen, it's great to be here in Maidstone. When we all voted to leave the EU 3 years ago, I believed it was a revolutionary act. It was a conscious step by those millions to break with what existed and move into something new. And that something new was our independence from the EU. That prize is something I've believed in passionately and was the reason I decided to join the Brexit Party. The referendum victory reaffirmed my belief that Great Britain is not a risk-averse nation. It was the greatest ever vote of confidence in the project of the United Kingdom. It was a reminder of our global leadership, the soft power that Great Britain has always had. Even though we've been locked in the EU for 45 years, for hundreds of years before we were an independent country, and 45 years from now, our membership of the EU will look like a quaint eccentricity and an accident. I believe passionately in British exceptionalism, that as a nation we are gifted with the most massive creative, imaginative and technical talent that makes us the 5th largest economy in the world and equal to 19 of the smallest members of the EU combined, where we are proud to declare our love of country, its traditions, our military and our cultural heritage, and those unique British values of individual responsibility, hard work, fair play and playing by the rules. We should never be ashamed of it, and we should never be cowed by political correctness. So what on earth do we have to be fearful of being independent? Nothing. But as we are now seeing, this last stage is the hardest. The treacherous establishment, as well as our political opponents, are doing absolutely everything in their power, whether it be parliamentary procedure or legal process, to prevent us departing. We are now in a full-blown constitutional crisis, and we'll have to do everything in our power to save Brexit. We must spell out why any attempt to bring back Theresa May's surrender treaty is unacceptable. If Boris Johnson, or God forbid, a caretaker government tries to reheat that treaty, then as far as I'm concerned, we have signed the modern equivalent of the Treaty of Versailles. So we need a general election now. We need people who are free of the stench of institutionalized duplicity that clings to the mainstream parties. Both the Conservatives and Labour have acted as a cartel against voters, ignoring you and treating you with contempt. They are the political elite, trampling over and traducing democracy when it doesn't go their way. It's difficult to think of a time in living memory when Westminster was so spectacularly adrift from public sentiment. A recent YouGov poll showed that 80% of MPs believe they should act in their own interests, even when it goes against the wishes of their own constituents. How on earth is this democracy? But Westminster is not the only political institution that holds voters in contempt. Since becoming an MEP, I've seen how autocratic and corrupt the European Union is. It's a Versailles of profligacy and a Brussels of bureaucracy. We simply don't belong there. Our incredible history formed over centuries, our common law heritage, our open economy with free trade at its heart, and our record of defending freedom in the face of tyranny. All these things are inimical to the EU. We are not temperamentally suited, nor are we culturally or economically compatible with such an inward-looking, sclerotic and anti-democratic superstate. But the withdrawal agreement and the political declaration keep us locked in. This combination of French drafting and UK civil service gold plating has delivered a contract worthy of a country defeated in war, a truly Carthaginian peace. We would be at the mercy of this contract, tied up, consenting to open-ended abuse and being delivered endless stinging blows with no way to get out. Not something any of us would sign up to. The political declaration dictates the ultimate timing of our departure on their terms, not ours. It prevents us signing free trade deals with the USA, Canada, and Australia. But by far the most noxious part of it is in the area of dispute settlement. This has escaped scrutiny because of the obsession with the backstop. In essence, it gives the European Court of Justice permanent supervision over our future relationship, and in any dispute, there is no independent arbitrator. That is ridiculous. No one should ever be forced into agreement where the party you are trying to reach an agreement with is both the judge and the jury. It amounts to judicial imperialism and would negate the entire constitutional purpose of Brexit. It must be removed. Second, we all know about the 39 billion payment but there are also ongoing payments for pensions and other projects that the EU has committed to. The EU also has huge debts and liabilities associated with the bailouts during the last financial crisis. There is a little-known bank called the European Investment Bank, the EIB, which acts as a highly leveraged lending arm of the EU, where we have left 8 billion of our own money behind, and in the event of another financial crisis over the next 12 years, not only will we lose that 8 billion, we will be forced to cough up a further 37 billion euros to cover their losses. To put that in context, that number equates to 1/3 of the cost of the NHS for 1 year. Third, the fishing. For me, fishing is the most totemic of issues, as it goes to the heart of everything that is wrong with the EU. The common fisheries policy has ripped the heart out of our coastal communities. It's an abomination. It's not only is it a biological and environmental disaster, it's also an economic and social catastrophe. It's destroyed jobs, livelihoods, and communities. In its wake, it's left despair and deprivation. We must end the shocking practice of pulse fishing, which destroys the seabed and entire marine ecosystem. To end the absurd situation where 80% of our own fish are caught by foreigners and then sold back to us. Both Conservative and Labour have abandoned our fishermen and have failed to prevent the pillaging of an industry that once employed thousands of people. They should be ashamed of their record of malign neglect. One of the biggest opportunities of Brexit is gaining control of UK territorial waters and reclaiming all of our fishing as soon as possible. This is an industry that creates 8 jobs on land for every 1 at sea and has the potential to create over £7 billion of annual wealth and to create over 100,000 sustainable jobs around the coast. But the withdrawal agreement and the political declaration don't let us. It forces us to share our waters and the quota system within the common fisheries policy. We cannot let this happen. We must leave with a clean break Brexit. To believe in Brexit now is to believe in country. And when the next general election comes, as it finally will, to vote for the Brexit Party is to vote for country. So let's make this last fight our hardest. Let's take this great country to where it rightfully belongs, as an independent, self-governing, sovereign nation, unshackled from that decaying superstate called the EU.
Thank you, Robert. He and colleagues, our Brexit Party MEPs, have worked incredibly hard in Brussels and in Strasbourg, identifying the waste. And you heard some of the examples there. The idea that our useless, clueless, incompetent civil servants could have left 8 billion euros on the table of our cash and have left us exposed to another over 30 billion euros is simply unbelievable, and we've got to stop it. And that's another reason why this shocking withdrawal agreement must never, ever be signed. And our next speaker, who's also an MEP for the Brexit Party, he's also been working incredibly hard. He's standing as a parliamentary candidate as well. He was previously worked in the charity sector. He was the chief executive of the Lord Mayor's Fund. So I think he knows Boris quite well. We'll see. You never know. You might get a story. But he's a fantastic attribute to the Brexit Party. Been really, really working hard in the European Parliament. Please give a massive welcome, Matthew Patten.
Well, I think all these speeches have to start with in the same way, which is say, "Hello, Maidstone!" I'd like to know, how many of you have been to an event like this before? Quick hat? Okay, a few. How many of you haven't? Okay. So you probably know how I'm feeling right now, which is just a little bit nervous. And I can honestly tell you that 6 months ago, if you told me I'd been standing here, I thought you would more likely think I'd be flying to the moon or something like that. But 6 months ago, I had a kind of a normal life, a family, friends, a proper job. But you know what? Something was kind of wrong. There was a kind of an itch, and then the itch turned into a scratch, and the scratch turned into a gaping wound, and I found myself, I think I found myself probably like a lot of you thinking, I can throw things at the television, or I can get up and do something about it. And I'm really, really thrilled to be with so many friends who are doing something about it. I really congratulate you for that. I was brought up to kind of believe in what I would kind of call traditional British values. Things like kind of tolerance and honesty, a sense of fair play, good humour, and actually even a belief in the rule of law, which seems quite apt at the moment. And here we are now. And when I was standing at the back, Richard, our chairman, said he wanted me to say something about where the Labour Party is at the moment. So I'm going to give that a go, but I need the mic. And I need my glasses. Ding dong. Hello, comrade. Diane Abbott here. I'm going to go to Brussels. I'm going to do a new deal with them, which is going to be even worse than the deal that we've got at the moment. Then I'm going to come back and I'm going to put that on a referendum. And I'm going to put Remain on the referendum. And then I'm going to campaign for both of them. And no, sorry, I can't tell you what Jeremy wants because he doesn't know either. So I know that Rory Bremner's job is still safe, but that is about the best I can do in terms of trying to explain Labour. I'm also, as Richard said, standing as a prospective parliamentary candidate for Folkestone and High. That's something I'm really, really proud to be doing. And I could bang on for a very long time about our current sitting MP who campaigned to remain for the referendum, then he voted for Parliament to take control, then he signed the dreadful Theresa May withdrawal agreement, and no doubt he'll do whatever Boris tells him to do, but I'm not going to do that because my local supporters said that what I had to say was we're going to campaign against the dreadful Otterpool Park Newtown development, which no one wants, which he's campaigning for, and it's going to go. But I'm not even going to talk about that. What I really want to do is I want to tell you something which I don't feel so many people are really talking about. I want to tell you that I am an optimist. I believe in our resilience. I believe in British talent, and I believe in our imagination. And I want to tell you what I'm hoping for from a clean break Brexit. I'm hoping, and I want, a nation that looks out to the world and wants to play a full part in it, where our companies are free trading and the world's businesses want to work with us. I want a nation that reveres its countryside and politics. Robert's already spoken about how we must get our fishing back. I totally agree with that. But where our farmers and our fishers and our coastal communities are regenerated, where we feed the nation, and we're proud to do so. I want clean Brexit because I want a nation that looks after its citizens. I believe we need to be providing great education for our children. I think we need to be respecting our elders. I think we need to absolutely believe in a free NHS and social care in the community like we've never seen before. And more than anything, I want a nation that is well led. I want a nation where these faceless Euro bureaucrats are not telling us what to do. I think it's not unreasonable to believe that we need to re-establish confidence in our democracy. What's happening now at the moment is absolutely shocking, and I know that we all feel that. So I want to take back control of our finance, of our borders, and our laws. That's what clean Brexit is about. Now, I know, and I'm not going to go through it all again, we've heard a lot about Boris's dreadful proposals in terms of a rehashed withdrawal agreement and how that still keeps us tied to the EU. We have to do everything we can do to tell our friends and our families that it's not what it seems. And I remember hearing somebody who shall remain nameless in this company saying that no deal is better than a bad deal. And I now have a confession to make. But it's true, and I know it's probably true for everybody here. I have some really, really good friends who are ardent Remainers. And I really, actually, I have to tell you, I respect their position when they say the withdrawal agreement is no good for them either. They're right to say from their point of view that why would they sign up to a deal that's even worse than the one we've got already? It makes no sense at all. But we live in a democracy. 17.4 million people, a clear majority, voted for us to leave. We need to honour that decision, and only a clean break Brexit is going to allow us to do that. So, and I'm going to tell you how we're going to do that. There's nothing technical about it. It's because of all of us. I'm really proud. One of the best things that's happened to me is I've made 28 fantastic new friends, the MEPs in the European Parliament, who are working hard. I'm so proud of them. We are the most diverse and the largest group in the European Union, and what a difference, I can promise you, they are making. But more than that, since becoming the prospective parliamentary candidate for Folkestone and Hythe, I've got to meet a whole load of new people, the volunteers and supporters on the street, and I am so grateful and proud of what they do. Some of them are here tonight, and I just want to recognise one of them, but on behalf of all of them, who's my amazing constituency organiser, Andy Wall. Where are you, Andy? I can't see you, but maybe you should stand up. Andy, we're all looking for... Oh, there he is. I want everybody to give Andy... And finally, I want to know who else, like Andy and like the volunteers in my area, have been out on stalls or knocking up or campaigning. Put your hands up. Let me just have a look around. Right, I want all you lot to stand up. Come on. You're the people. You're the people. We're all different. We're all different, but we are all united in our ambition for a clean break Brexit. And that's why I know we're going to win. It's time to deliver on the referendum. It's absolutely time to deliver change in politics for good. It's absolutely time for a clean break Brexit. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Matthew. Rory Bremner may be safe, but my word, that was a perfect description of the Labour Party's position on Brexit. You couldn't make it up. It's ridiculous. And so to our next speaker, who's a prospective parliamentary candidate for a really interesting seat, because this is a seat that had a former Conservative MP who's now sort of done a runner. Disappeared to that really anti-democratic bunch called the Liberals, or the Liberal Democrats. Boo! Yes, I'm talking about Mr. Jima's seat. So this candidate has a fantastic chance because, of course, Jimmy, he hasn't had the courage to put himself up, having, reneged and legged it. He should have stood as a by-election, but no, he's still there, not voting to have an election. So our next speaker has a huge chance in this seat. And she's had a varied career. She's been a businesswoman, a teacher. She's absolutely committed, passionate Brexiteer. She grew up in Belfast. Please give a massive welcome, Yasmin Fitzpatrick.
Maidstone. Now, some people think that I'm not your typical Brexit Party candidate. Bear with. I was born in London, but I lived for most of my childhood in working class areas of Belfast during what was called the Troubles. Remember those? Yeah. My father was a Muslim businessman. My mother was a fiercely anti-sectarian Northern Irish woman and a hard-working single parent for most of her working life. Later, I worked as a television journalist and a documentary maker in London and in parts of Europe. I don't know quite how to say the next bit. I ended up in the BBC. Wait for it. And then...
It gets worse.
Then as a commissioning editor in Channel 4. Before deciding on a career change. I've project managed some of the changes in big NH hospitals. I've run a small business, and I recently qualified to teach German and French in our schools. So, maybe, thank you. Thank you. So maybe I'm not a typical Brexit Party supporter, but you know what? Who is? Despite all those silly stereotypes, there's no such thing, is there? No. As someone who could, at best, have been described as a disillusioned leftist, I've got to say the Brexit Party has been a real ray of light. Really. The party has moved beyond the old divisions of right and left and centre, and what unites us is a determination to defend democracy and to enact the wishes of the majority who wants to leave the EU. I am proud to be part of this. But, you know, we have a fight on our hands. Over and over again, an establishment elite has dishonoured the referendum decision. They keep telling us we can't change anything and that our votes don't count. But you know what? They are wrong. We've already changed the politics of our country. Make no mistake, you've heard it already this evening. It was the Brexit Party that forced the resignation of Theresa May following those amazing results in the European elections. Meanwhile, in my East Surrey constituency, Sam Gyimah has been the elected MP for 9 years. As a Conservative MP, he refused to support the referendum result. A few weeks ago, he scuttled off to join the unliberal non-Democrats. And despite all this, he's still the sitting MP for East Surrey. So now, at this crucial time, the electorate of East Surrey, 54% of whom voted to leave the EU, is represented in Parliament by an MP who wants to tear up their votes and revoke Article 50. Now that's what I call a toxic insult. Only the local Brexit Party now speaks for that majority, and we do so with pride and with huge determination. And it's the same up and down the country, isn't it? A majority Leave electorate, misrepresented by a majority Leave Parliament. This has got to change. So we need Brexiteers to replace some of those zombie parliamentarians. We need Brexiteers in Parliament to make sure that we really do leave the EU once and for all. So, my appeal to you tonight is let's build the Leave vote. And let's make sure together that we really do change politics for good. Thank you.
Fantastic, Yasmin. Thank you very much for your commitment and support. And we've talked a bit about this terrible withdrawal agreement. The thing about words is, I mean, this agreement's 585 pages long. I will admit I'm one of the sad people that's actually read the wretched thing. But you know what they say? Very often a picture tells 1,000 words. And I was grappling with how can we sort of truly, graphically show how bad it is. And I suddenly realized that basically it's a trap. The whole thing is a complete trap that binds us, that locks us in, like being with handcuffs to the European Union forever. Think about, for example, being in a prison. You're trapped. You don't know how long you're going to be there. Poor Boris doesn't know how long he's going to be trapped in the Houses of Parliament at the moment. The thing about a prison is, let's just look at the letters. What does the letter P stand for? Well, I'll tell you, it means paying 39 billion quid of our cash for nothing in return except the right for a chat. That's not a good deal, ladies and gentlemen. That's a disaster. What does R stand for? Well, R stands for continuing to be ruled by the ECJ for years and years and years. What does I stand for? Well, we would still be inside the customs union and the single market, ladies and gentlemen. It's getting a bit cozy here. We'd be trapped. We wouldn't be able to cut tariffs. We couldn't do trade deals. We couldn't reduce consumer prices. S means that we would suffer the continued rape, pillage, and plundering of our fishing waters. And as you can see now, this is really beginning to feel a little bit uncomfortable. I'm restricted. And believe it or not, these bars, they've got the European flag on. It tells it all, doesn't it? I'm thinking, I really am feeling a bit like Boris at the moment. O means that we're ordered around. We're ordered to accept their future rules and regulations for years to come. And think of this, ladies and gentlemen. We're ordered how to operate our military, our armed forces, and how to conduct some of our foreign policy. That is absolutely shocking. That is not what a free country should have. That is a form of entrapment, of being handcuffed forever to the European Union. So, ladies and gentlemen, N means that is not Brexit. That means we are trapped, we are locked in for as long as the European Union want. And they have got the key. And I'm not interested in that. Are you interested in that? No. Are you sure? I think we want something different, ladies and gentlemen. I think we want to break free! We want to be a free nation. We want to be free to run our country as it should be run. We want to be free to buy British products when we want to. We want to be free to protect and invest in our strategic industries when we want to, like steel, like defence, like the railways. We need these choices. We need that freedom. That's how we will grow and prosper. And our final speaker this evening, ladies and gentlemen, as you well know, has fought harder, more courageously, more bravely, for longer than anybody to ensure that we get back that freedom. Let's be very, very clear, ladies and gentlemen. Without Nigel, there would have been no referendum. Without Nigel, we wouldn't have won that referendum. There would be no Brexit. And without Nigel, ladies and gentlemen, there wouldn't be a Brexit Party. Before we welcome him to the stage, let's just remind ourselves of him in action. And he's on great form on the video, on the screen.
It's extraordinary to think that back in March of this year, all seemed lost from a Brexit perspective. We had a Labour and Conservative Party, both of whom were happy not to take us out of the European Union. And I felt that something absolutely fundamental had broken. Trust in politics, trust in our entire political system, and that is why I founded the Brexit Party, to restore that faith. What we've done already is we have completely reset the political agenda in this country, so much so that a clean break Brexit on the 31st of October is now by far the most popular option in this country.
Please welcome to the stage, Nigel Farage.
Good evening, Kent. It is great tonight to be here in the heart of this great county as the supporting act to Anne Widdecombe. You know, I spent nearly a quarter of a century working and fighting for us to be an independent, self-governing, proud nation that makes its own way in the world, makes its own laws, controls its own borders. And I thought, back in 2016, after that referendum, that we'd done it. Because I, mistakenly, perhaps stupidly, believed what our politicians were telling us, believed what Prime Minister Theresa May was telling us. They told us, do you remember all of them told us, that they would implement the result of the referendum. All of them told us in their manifestos that they would respect the result of the referendum and implement Brexit. And when I hear from a group of people, some on the hard left, others just hard Remain, who have, in the course of the last 10 to 15 years, particularly in this county, as I've campaigned, stood in elections, and when I've seen their abuse, when I've seen their trolling, when I've seen their intimidation, when I've seen their physical violence, now have the temerity to tell us that we shouldn't use words like surrender and betray.
in a way, I have to thank Ken Clarke, the father of the House of Commons, who said today that this narrative of Boris Johnson's, that the Brexit vote had been betrayed and that our interests were being surrendered to Brussels, was a narrative that was started by Nigel Farage. And of course, the very utterance of the name, well, it gives them the heebie-jeebies. They're scared of me. But more important than that, they're scared of the Brexit Party, and so they should be. One of the most remarkable things, having spent a couple of years outside of the front line of politics, living almost a normal life, but I decided I couldn't go on with it. I couldn't witness this betrayal. I couldn't witness all that we'd fought for being given away. I couldn't witness the prize of being independent and free. What price? Freedom. That's what I thought to myself. I thought, I've got to do something about this. Got to do something. So I did perhaps the cleverest thing in my life, and I founded the Brexit Party, and Richard and I sat down and tried to build this organisation from scratch. And we found wonderful people to stand for us and become MEPs, and I'm very proud of them. And standing on this stage with me tonight, ladies and gentlemen, are the men and women who are our prospective parliamentary candidates in Kent and other parts of the South East. And be in no doubt that whatever comes, we are ready. Are you ready? Are you ready? Oh, we're ready. We're ready. But the most amazing thing that happened, having set up the Brexit Party, with this remarkable rush of enthusiasm, energy, and £25 people, registered supporters, signing up at £25 a time. Of course, the media said the money had all come from Russia. But I know where the money came from. I know how we raised millions. We raised it from you in this hall, from your £25, and I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. I really do. So we got the thing set up, we got it moving, we launched on the 12th of April in a factory in Leicester, and then there we were. It was Easter Saturday, we were in the office, trying to work out the candidate list for the European elections, and I mean, literally, the party had been born 2 weeks previously, and there we were planning to try to win a national campaign. Oh, by the way, unless you hadn't noticed, Alistair Campbell and the others will tell you that the Liberal Democrats somehow won the European elections, but the party that didn't just win the European elections, but got 50% more votes than any other party in that contest, was the Brexit Party, wasn't it? So there we were, Easter Saturday, we've got printouts and goodness knows what all over the desks. We're trying to work out who to select, what to do. Not easy. And the phone rings. I pick it up. Hello? Nigel, Anne Widdecombe here. Well, of course, I immediately stood to attention and said, yes, ma'am, as you should do with royalty. It's very, very important. And she said to me, I couldn't believe it. You could have knocked me down with a feather.
She said to me, "Are you looking for candidates in the European elections?" I said, "Well, Anne, we're looking for good ones." She said, "I'm available and I want to stand. Thank you very much. Goodbye." And I'm pleased because she's not here, because she's gone off to do Newsnight. And I've got to tell you, the levels of energy, the levels of commitment, the levels of belief, the levels of a patriotic view that this is a great country, still full of great people, but badly led from Westminster by our career political class. She, I think, made a massive, massive difference. And I think with people like Anne Widdecombe, not only is she a great person, but there's also somebody else the European Commission hates maybe even more than me. How about that? So she was the Maidstone MP from 1987, but extraordinarily, the previous Maidstone MP, who was there from 1950 to 1987, who died a couple of years ago in his 90s, Sir John Wells, who'd been a prominent pro-marketeer, a friend of Edward Heath's, and in my previous incarnation as UKIP, Sir John Wells, another former Maidstone Member of Parliament, joined UKIP, joined me on the campaign trail. So I'd like to think that there's something in the water in Maidstone. But unfortunately, with Helen Clark and most of the other MPs that represent Kent, that is simply not the case. We have been through 2 or 3 of the most extraordinary weeks I think we'll ever witness in British politics. But I suspect that this is going to get even worse before it gets better. One of the reasons is that John Bercow is sitting as Speaker in the House of Commons. Oh, I've got better than that for you, don't you worry. And we've got whole rafts of MPs from all parties now breaking every single promise they've made, doing their best to try to overturn the Brexit result. We've got one MP who seems to now get wall-to-wall coverage. I see her more on television than in the old days we used to see the test card. She leads a political party currently hovering at around about, you've got it. She leads a party currently hovering at around about 0% in the opinion polls. They change the name of the organisation every 3 weeks. And I don't know about you, I've just about had enough of seeing Anna Soubry on the BBC. I agree. But the betrayal on Brexit is not alone. And I want to focus for a moment, if I can, on the Labour Party, led by one Jeremy Corbyn, who seems to have done his best over his career to support virtually every enemy this country has ever had. Why did we vote Brexit? We voted Brexit because we wanted to be an independent country. We voted Brexit because we wanted to be a democracy. We voted Brexit because we wanted to be able to choose our own friends and relationships around the rest of the world. And every one of us in this room knows that our relationship with the Commonwealth, America, and the English-speaking world matters more than our relationship with our European neighbours. But we also voted Brexit because we wanted to take back control
of our borders. And no county knows this and feels this more keenly than Kent. The current farcical situation where anybody being trafficked across the English Channel that puts a foot on a Kent beach or gets brought from this side of the 12-mile line is simply allowed to stay. It is weak government that is forcing us into this. Very weak government that allows this. But the truth is, however shocked we may be about our weakness, the numbers of people coming here by dinghy are frankly, statistically insignificant. Let's remind ourselves that since the end of World War II, when we felt, quite rightly, that we owed a huge debt to those Commonwealth nations who voluntarily, every one of them voluntarily, had come. There was no conscription from any empire country, any Commonwealth country, and yet in those two world wars, and sharing our losses and our sadness, 40% of our entire contribution in those wars came from what are now Commonwealth countries, and we felt rightly that we owed them a debt. And we began a campaign, a program of Commonwealth immigration. And it ran from the late 1940s, and it ran through the 40s, and it ran through the 50s, and it ran through the 60s, and it ran through the 70s, and it ran through the 80s, and it ran nearly towards the end of the 1990s of controlled immigration from the Commonwealth and the rest of the world. And it averaged a net figure of about 30,000 people every year. And there is no question that of all countries in Europe, we were the ones that did immigration the best. We were the ones that managed to get integration of migrant communities in with the existing community the best. We were the ones that had the best levels of tolerance, the best levels of understanding, the best levels of respect, certainly compared to our neighbours across the Channel, who always found this difficult. And then Tony Blair got in and decided to open up, decided to rub the noses of the right in diversity. And then the European Union expanded. And we have finished up for much of the last decade, in fact, on average, for all of the last decade, with net migration to this country running at nearly 300,000 people every single year, and that is without those who come and settle illegally. We are not an intolerant country, and believe you me, we are not an intolerant party. But surely, common sense says that when you have a government that is responsible for education, a government that is responsible for healthcare, a government that is responsible for infrastructure, you cannot have a complete open door to limitless numbers of people. You need to control immigration to do it properly, to do it sensibly. And we have a population crisis in our nation. You see it right now with what's happening with road expansion. You see it right now with parents not able to get their kids into local primary schools. You see it right now with people trying to get a GP appointment. You see it in every walk of our life. We have a population crisis, one that we couldn't have planned for, because we weren't actually controlling the numbers that were coming. And into all of this is a second extraordinary betrayal by the Labour Party under Jeremy Corbyn. In the 2017 general election, the Labour Party said that they would end free movement when we left the European Union, something that overwhelmingly
people in this country wanted to happen. Interestingly, a large proportion of Remainers thought we should have some control on the numbers coming. This week, in the Labour Party conference, they have voted not just to continue free movement with the rest of Europe, but to extend it to much of the rest of the world. Basically, if we get a Labour government, we will have uncontrolled mass immigration into this country, and once they've come and settled, they will have the right to vote. I cannot think of a more socially destructive policy that any party has put forward in modern times than what the Labour Party have done this week. They've lied to us on Brexit. They now want to have a second referendum that gives us the choice of Remain or Remain. And now they want to open up the doors to uncontrolled mass immigration. And I think now we as the Brexit Party know that we are absolutely, in political terms, we are at war politically with a Labour Party that have deceived and cheated their own people and do not stand for this country. And what are the Conservatives? What are the Conservatives who promise us things in every manifesto that they never intend to actually deliver? They've been dishonest with us for decades on many of these issues. Now look, Boris Johnson is a big improvement on Theresa May. Let's be frank. Let's be frank. He's brought some energy and optimism to the job. His technology training is second to none. For those that got it, that's great. But for all the fine words, for all the talk, for all the mimicking of everything we've done since the 12th of April, it's all very well talking the talk, but can you actually walk the walk? And he is now, and I saw disturbing signs in Strasbourg last week. There we were, all 29 of us, sitting in the block in the Parliament, and every time another speaker condemned the referendum, said the British were stupid, said we should vote again, we collectively, as your Brexit Party representatives, took the view that we've had enough of being insulted, enough of being talked down to, and we stood up and we shouted back as loud as we could. All right, I hope that was the right thing to do. But I saw something last week in Strasbourg that was disturbing. And it was the sight of Messrs. Juncker and Barnier actually being quite nice about us. Now, beware of people bearing gifts and all that. The tone was different. No attacks on Boris Johnson. No attacks on Brexit, just regret that we were leaving, and talk of changing that desperate, awful new European treaty, that worst deal in history that Richard has just talked about, and talk perhaps of the backstop being changed. Mr. Juncker, in his speech, we were there listening, said, "I have no emotional attachment to the backstop." Later on that evening, I've no idea what he'd been doing at lunch, but I can guess. Don't condemn a man for that, you know. But later on that day, he said he had no erotic attachment to the backstop. Which all goes to show you can disagree with people but still find them amusing. You can disagree with people but still like them. That's how civilized democracy ought to work.
We ought to respect the fact people have different points of view, provided they're sincerely held. That matters. It matters. And then we heard a speech from Mr. Verhofstadt, who disproves the theory. Because I disagree with him and I dislike him intensely, I have to tell you. What they're terrified of us breaking free. They're terrified of us leaving the single market. They're terrified of us being outside the customs union. They're terrified of us being able to make our own deals with America, Jamaica, or wherever we choose. They're terrified of us getting back our fishing waters. They're terrified of us doing better than they are. They're terrified of us becoming richer and more successful and prouder and happier than they are. And that is the prize of Brexit, and that is why we must not and we will not sell out if Boris decides to go down the route of reheating Mrs. May's deal. We will stand and fight you every inch of the way, Boris, if you make that mistake. We are at an extraordinary moment, an extraordinary pivot point in the future of this country. This is the biggest political battle that's been fought here for over 300 years. The price of losing is that we will lose everything we've ever stood for. Everything those generations that went before us built, fought for, defended at great cost. We are not going to stand idly by, and I'm not going to stand idly by. I am not, after 25 years of battling to get to this point, going to agree to us signing up to a new EU treaty where their courts are superior, where we pay them a fortune, where the only way we ever get a trade deal is relying on their good faith. I'm not going to sell out. These men and women on the platform tonight with me are not going to sell out. We know what we voted for. We know we voted to be free. We know we voted to be independent. And we, whether we do it ourselves or at times work with others, we don't mind. We'll work with good people in other parties, if we can find them. But we know what we're about, and I know that this political party, this movement, because we are a movement, we may be just 24 weeks old, but nobody in modern British politics, no movement has ever had this passion, this honesty, this energy, this decency, and this well-placed kind of patriotism. And I want to ask you to do something. I'm pleased that you've come along tonight to attend these rallies, and it's amazing, everywhere we go, we get massive audiences of enthusiastic people coming who said the public meeting was dead. But we need you to go out there and help us. We need you to sign us up more subscribers. We need you to go out and be fishers of men on our behalf. We need you to be active and to be involved. And you know something? Whatever we may see in Westminster, whatever feelings we have for this appalling career set of politicians today, we know something. We're the only party here that'll put country before party. We're the only party here who actually believes in Britain. And if you believe in Britain, join us on that journey and we will win. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Well, I think that's proof, ladies and gentlemen. I think that's proof that he's up for it. He's ready, we're ready, and we are definitely, with Nigel's leadership, we are definitely going to secure, one way or another, a clean break Brexit. Now, we know we've just got time for a few questions. And you know how serious this is when normally we get a couple of humorous questions. I normally get, what's your favourite beer? And here in the county of hops, we haven't had that question, which means it's really serious, the situation.
It's got to be Shepherd and Neame, hasn't
It's
it?
got to be Shepherd and Neame. But that's the reality, ladies and gentlemen, of what is going on. And Chris from Bicester, he asked, will the Brexit Party need to change its name after the 31st of October? Well, the truth is, ladies and gentlemen, we're not leaving on the 31st of October. Of course not. And Brexit stands for hope, opportunity, optimism, and ambition. And we need to get that across the whole country. So, Nigel, Diane from Bexhill, she says, if we don't leave on the 31st, what can we, the public, do about it?
Look, I think the chances of us leaving on the 31st of October are slim, to say the very least. And all these do or dies and all these die in a ditches, I don't think will amount to a row of beans. It'll be the second time this year that the Conservative Party have completely let us down in what they promised to do. And what I know is this, Diane, what I know is this. If it hadn't been for Jimmy Goldsmith and the Referendum Party, we'd have joined the euro. If it hadn't been for UKIP, we'd never have had that referendum to give us this opportunity. And if it wasn't for the Brexit Party, we would never get Brexit. The only way I can guarantee you Brexit is if the Brexit Party is strong. And we will win this, and I'll tell you why. Parliament speaks for itself. Those political parties operate in their own interests. They are completely and hopelessly out of touch with this nation. Not just Leavers, for whom the genie is now out of the bottle and will never go back. But there are also many very decent people who voted Remain, who understand that if this result, if the greatest democratic exercise in the history of our nation does not happen, we will never be the same again. Our standing in the world will dissolve. Our democracy will be valueless. Our nation utterly traduced. And there are many decent Remainers who, if they were forced to vote again in a second referendum, would now vote for us to leave. In fact, this battle now, it isn't even about Brexit. It's about our country. It's about who we are as a people. It's about all the things that we've held dear for centuries. And we will not cease in our battle until we win. And we are, remember, we are going to win.
And we've just got time for an important final question. Stephen from Middlesex. Stephen asks, are we going to help out Boris even though I don't trust him? Perfect last question.
You can only help those who help themselves. I have made it clear that if Boris Johnson decides that a clean break Brexit is the only way to go after his attempt to reheat Mrs May's dreadful treaty fails, as it will once again in the Commons, if Boris decides to go for a clean break Brexit, then we will stand by and help them do it. We will put the interests of the nation above our own personal self-interest as candidates or as a party. We will put country before party. And Boris, if you did decide to be brave, if you did decide that there's no room anymore for Philip Hammond or Nicholas Soames or Anna Soubry, if you did decide to be clear, working with us for a clean break Brexit, together we've been unstoppable. Together Boris will win a big majority. With that, we'd get Brexit, we'd crush the increasingly appalling, illiberal and undemocratic Lib Dems, and we crush the Marxist plot to take over the country by the even more appalling Corbyn and McDonnell. So, let's have you on your feet, ladies and gentlemen. I want to hear it loud and clear. Are we ready? Yes. Are we ready? Yes. Are you ready? Yes. Thank you very much. We need your help. Have a very safe trip home. Thank you.